Welcome to the Leader Impact Podcast. We are a community of leaders dedicated to optimizing our personal, professional, and spiritual lives to have impact. This show is where we have a chance to listen and engage with leaders from around the world who are living this out. We love talking with leaders, so if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions to make the show even better, please let us know. The best way to stay connected is through our newsletter at leaderimpact.ca or on social media at LeaderImpact. I'm your host, Lisa Peters, and we welcome to our Leader Impact podcast, Enoch Weng. Enoch is the CEO and co-founder of Rise Above Finance, which is focused on providing relationship-based financial coaching based upon biblical wisdom to achieve financial transformation. He is a highly sought-after speaker, consultant, and board member for his work in the nonprofit and business world. With his unique background blend of entrepreneurship, finance, and the creative arts, Enoch has been pioneering interdisciplinary innovation throughout his career. Enoch is a Simon Fraser University Alumni, having completed a BBA in finance, and is a holder of the Responsible Investment Specialist designation. He is a current director for Faith Tech, Muse West, and Glorious Art Institute, and is a core organizer for Vancouver Startup Week and Leader Impact. In his spare time, Enoch finds himself bouncing between composing jazz compositions and enjoying anime, yet still finds time to watch Disney movies. Join us now for a conversation with Enoch Weng about living out your calling in your personal, professional, and spiritual life. Welcome to the show, Enoch.
Thanks, Lisa. It's an honor to be here. And oh my goodness, what an intro.
You've been the talk. It's like, who should I interview? It's like, you got to talk to Enoch Weng. He is really cool. Told me a little bit about you. I'm like, we got to talk. So people are talking about Enoch.
Oh my goodness. So you know. I hope they can't see the video because I'm feeling red.
So my first question for you, because you just said you love Disney. What's your favorite Disney movie?
Oh my goodness. I get this all the time. So I used to be known for playing Disney medleys. And so my cop-out answer is to say I love all of them. But if I had to choose one, it would actually be the Tigger movie. It's a not well-known Winnie the Pooh movie, but it just... when I watched it with my family, I thought, oh, this is going to be a Disney movie. But it delved into the elements of what a family is, what trust is like, what you do when you feel trust is broken. And it all just comes back to the search to what is purpose and meaning. And you can find it all in one movie.
Good one. Does Cinderella have that kind of meaning? Or anyway?
Good question.
I don't know. We're not going there. Anyway, so again, Enoch, welcome to the show. We definitely want to talk about, your personal, professional, spiritual life. So I want you to kick off with, tell us a little bit more about yourself and, let's get to know Enoch.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. Where to even start with this? I think I might need you to prompt me a little bit.
I think, I know you talked about you moved here when you were very young. You moved to, I think, Vancouver, but I'm not sure if you moved directly there.
Yes. So our family moved in the mid-90s. So I was born in Taiwan, in Taipei, and we moved as a family to Canada to start a new life. And I remember just growing up, I grew up in Langley. So it was a community where the school I was at had only 2 Asians in it. It was me and my brother. So people would joke to say, hey, is that other Asian guy your brother? And I would just mess with them like, what are you talking about? Like, that's stereotyping. But then actually I would say, no, but it's actually my brother. So just growing up, it was just very interesting kind of learning about the Canadian culture. And then later on, when we moved towards Vancouver, Burnaby, where there were a lot more people of Asian descent, I had almost reverse culture shock because I didn't know about things like bubble tea, anime, and about all these different things. And so I was kind of in this kind of middle culture kid. I don't know if you call it third culture kid, but I had to really kind of identify what was my identity. Who am I? So that was kind of marked a large period of my early childhood years trying to figure out who I was.
Wow. I got caught on bubble tea because I just figured that out about a month ago.
Oh, yes. You have discovered the joys of life.
Wow. It's really good.
Yeah. So this is the thing. I used to do a lot of coffee chats, but then caffeine would get me really jittery. So I'm actually now known for my bubble tea finance chats. It's a hashtag thing with my millennial clients.
That's funny. So you continued on like elementary school throughout and university in the area?
Yes. So
SFU grad?
Exactly. So, yeah, so I went to SFU. It was just up on the mountain nearby in Burnaby. And yeah, I've just been living and working in Vancouver ever since.
All right. So, you when you graduated SFU, did you always like when you were done high school, were you like, I am ready for university. I know what I want to be. This is great. I'm going to be a financial planner, a biblical financial
Oh my
planner. Like,
goodness. The thing is, no, not at all. First, I had no intention to do business at all, to go into finance. So to kind of give you some context, I wanted to do music. And the reason why was because my entire family, they're all artists or musicians. So my dad runs an art school here in Vancouver. My mom's there. My sister's an industrial designer. My brother's an artist. And if you look at my extended family, one of them runs one of the museums here. Another's a PhD in music, and another one runs their digital agency. So, and then I can go on and on about all my relatives that are in the arts. And so for me, I was a jazz pianist. I did a lot of wedding gigs and banquets, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to be a world class musician. And as I was applying for music schools around the world, I ended up getting accepted into a business school or a few business schools because I was just kind of applying on a whim. And then with my Asian parents, they're like, hey, why don't you consider business school? Because you're probably going to be the only one in our family to do that. And I kind of just signed up out of curiosity. And I joined in. But then honestly, my first few years, I actually didn't enjoy school at all. I loved making friends, learning about business, but I was just surrounded by people that were just very, how do I describe it? They kind of felt like snakes, you know? Like I was here to make friends, but they were here to make connections. And here they're giving me their business cards and things. I'm just like, you're a first year. Why would you need a business card? So I was very confused at this whole new world. And I honestly felt a little bit kind of out of place. But I think for me, the biggest change in all of this was in my third year. So I was getting ready for my finals. I was in a library study when I got a call from my mom. And I picked up the phone and I said, "Hey, mom, like, what's going on?" And I just heard her panicked voice say, "Hey, Enoch, you need to come to the hospital right now. It's an emergency." And yeah, I just didn't know what to think. So I just immediately just packed my bags, left the door, and it was just excruciating pain, just waiting for the buses to come. And finally, at the hospital, running through the hallway, and then I open a door, and there I see my little brother Luke lying on a hospital bed, just tubes, and he's just yeah, I just knocked out, and the doctor says that, hey, your brother Luke has been diagnosed with brain cancer. We need to operate now. We need to figure it out, and this is it. And I was just in shock. I didn't expect this. I mean, none of us expected it to happen because we don't have cancer in the family. And within kind of just the next few weeks, it was just biopsies, getting ready for radiation, chemo, and honestly, at that time, I ended up failing 2 semesters in a row, and then I dropped out of school. Um,
wow.
Yeah, and it was just a very emotional time where, because the term "starving artist" might have been a phrase, but we kind of lived through that. We didn't really have that financial education. Nobody really taught us about savings and the right insurance. In fact, we actually bought the wrong insurance because we had met with sales advisors, not or sales representatives, not actual advisors. So I couldn't
Wow.
really afford to go back to school actually, as well. That was part of the reason, and it was just kind of for me, the turning point was that I was asking myself, why am I working so hard and going to school, figuring this out when my brother's dying in a hospital? And I remember there was this one moment. It was when they were doing the biopsy, but after they finished the procedure, something went wrong. And my brother ended up having a seizure and was in a coma. And I remember the doctor saying either he recovers and wakes up in the next week or that's it. And I honestly had just lost hope at the time. I was questioning, if God is love and God is out there, then why is this happening to our family? We've been so faithful. Why now? Why here? And I remember my dad just bringing us to the living room, and he got us to just go on our knees and say, "We're gonna pray for this, and regardless of whatever happens, God is still in control." And I remember at the point we just prayed for hours together as a family. And then in the next few days, it was just miraculous. But my brother woke up, and then in the week since, he recovered to, I think, 85, 90%. And then the doctors were saying that this is a miracle. Like, this is not something that should have happened. And yeah, it was just, oh man, just amazing seeing that moment. And what should have torn our family apart actually brought us all so close together. And, to this day, we've never been closer. And I have to thank God for being just the cornerstone of our life.
Wow, what a story, Enoch. I'm glad to hear your brother came out of it, woke up and coming closer to God. What a great story and praise. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Um, I know you're going to go back to your brother a little later, but you had quit school. I mean, I get it. You had to take care of your family. Everyone needs you. Did you go back to school? Did you go back to that class? Did you finish?
I did actually. About a year after, I decided to go back. I had a renewed kind of sense of spirit because I had seen just the church community, the friends, the family around us rally together, and the importance of having a support network and being true to yourself. And the reason why I went back was because during this time, nobody really knew what we were going through as a family. I think most people thought I was still in school because I was still participating in clubs and involved in initiatives. But I was honestly embarrassed. I didn't want to show weakness. I didn't want people to know what I was going through. And when I finally did open up to my close friends, instead of being judged and looked down upon as I thought, they rallied against like for me. They got together. Some of them would come over, take me out. Some of them would just help me, plan out my the rest of my university life. And so when I went back, my goal really was to say, how do I help the people around me? And to just break down the stigmas of mental health, of having to put a facade of excellence when really all of us are hurting. We're all striving and yearning for something. And so I went back with that kind of vision. And yeah, in the next years after that, God just opened up these doors where I was able to step into moments of leadership. I was leading student clubs and eventually became president of the Student Society, where I was able to just share love to the people around me. And so that's kind of what rekindled that fire.
Yeah, it's amazing the things that happen in your life that push you forward or pull
Yes.
you forward, and or
Yes.
you think it's a blow to you and it's a hit, and but you grew so much from that, and I hate that it's an incident like that, but you know listening to you is such a great story.
Thank
So
you.
I know you graduated because you're a financial planner, but I want you to tell us a little bit more now about your professional journey. I'm not sure that's the first thing you did when you graduated. So, how did you become a Christian financial planner? What was your journey to get there?
Oh, for sure. It's a wild ride. So buckle your seatbelt. Here we go. So when I graduated with a finance degree, and I've done my financial internships, and I was looking at corporate. And so I thought, as any business graduate, finance graduate, I'm going to climb the corporate ladder for success because that's my idea of winning in life. To make as much money as I can and to be in a position where people can admire me. And as I was kind of working in that area, I just felt so lost. I just started asking myself, what am I doing? I'm just making the rich more rich. Um, and for me as a Christian, I just didn't know what the heck my work had to do with my faith. I would serve at church on a worship team and just do my business, do my networking, and it just felt meaningless, like I was a cog in a machine. And so I decided to leave actually, and I jumped into nonprofit because I thought, hey, surely I can do so much good that's directly impacted, or I can see a direct impact in nonprofit. And in nonprofit, I love the work, I love the people, but I just hated how everyone was underpaid. There was never any money, and all these organizations were working so hard to fundraise, to deal with donor advising, and I was in charge of one of the big kind of national grants. And what happened at the end of the day was when governments change, when partnerships changed, boom, these funding disappears. And I saw good organizations go down. And I know, Lisa, you've been involved with this, and a lot of listeners can appreciate when I say that it's just very hard to be in a nonprofit world. And going through that, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to change again. I'm trying to think to myself, what can I do to make as much money as I can to support all these causes? And so, being in Vancouver, I jump into tech. I joined a tech accelerator where I'm part of the team, and I got really involved in the tech scene. And I'm here looking at some of the different positions being opened, and there was this senior management role coming out, an exec role, and I thought to myself, hey, here we go, 6-figure pay. I'm hanging out with CEOs every day. I'm living the life. And this is the exact moment where I started to feel God tug at my heart and speak. Um, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, that feeling, but when God tugs at your heart,
Yeah,
you
for me,
listen.
it's like how I because I want you to stop there. Like that
Yes.
tug at your heart. What were you feeling? Like I get it in my gut. It's like
Mm.
something's happening, and
Oh,
I know exactly.
yes.
But for our listeners, what did you feel? Can you like a tug at your
Yes.
heart?
Oh, 100%. That's exactly the feeling. Where it's, there's something's wrong, something's off. And for me, I experienced God through my personal meditations, but also through the people around me. And as I was hearing my people talking around me, they would say things like, "Hey, like, like, have you thought about your future?" And then they would say comments about like, "Hey, I think you would do really good in this area," or, "Hey, what has God asked you to do?" And I would have verses pop up repeatedly. And in that case, what was the big kind of moment for me was when I had the kind of the thought that, hey, I shouldn't be here, or go, you need to pray to God. And so I was in my prayer talking to God, and I said, hey, what do you want to do with me? Like, what's up? Essentially. And I was really scared because I'm like, yo, every time God talks to my heart, something big's going to happen. And in that moment, I heard God say, hey, you need to leave. Like, you need to go. And I thought, oh, okay, go where? And radio silence. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, is this actually God? Because this is crazy. You're asking me to leave this tech world, all these things I worked so freaking hard to get to go somewhere where there's no backup plan. And I'm a planner by nature. I like to plan my things out, to be structured. And I thought, okay, what now? So I go to my dad, and I'm like, okay, Dad, you're a very traditional Asian man. About to leave my big tech kind of world, 6-figure, all that stuff, to go to do nothing, to sit on it, no benefits, no backup plan. What do you think? And he says, of course, you're crazy. Why would you do that? And I said, because God told me. And he said, oh, if God's telling you, then do it. And I thought, oh no, I forgot. You're a very spiritual guy too. And that was about, 4 or 5 years ago. And I just walked away from it all. And I wish I could tell you that it was just an instant door opening.
When you walked away, how
Right.
did you, was it like elation, or was it, because mine, when I walked away, it was like vomit. It's like,
Yeah.
what have I done? What have I done?
Oh
And
gosh. Yeah.
and yeah, so when you walked away, was it la la la? Or was it, oh
It was
gosh?
not a Disney movie moment, as people might imagine. There's no rainbows, butterflies. There's no, cue the musical. Honestly, it was just a very fearful moment for me. But let me backtrack a little bit. I was very scared, and I was just very confused, but I had peace. And I think that's the one thing that permeated. It's, since, having Jesus come into my life, like every moment, whether it's my brother going cancer, all my kind of different shifts of life, I've always had peace. I always knew I am in God's hands. Like, no matter what happens to life towards me, I'm good. But I still have the human emotions of just fear and
Oh,
trepidation. I was just, wondering about what's going on. And, at this moment, it wasn't, 1 or 2 months. It was like almost half a year where I'm watching my bank account drip down. All my friends and colleagues were getting married, having kids, flying around the world. And of course, they're asking me, saying, hey, Enoch, you're always doing some cool thing. What are you doing now? And all I could say was, I'm waiting on the Lord, whatever that means.
yeah. I feel like we live the same story. So
Yes.
yeah, I can feel it with you, because sometimes I'm still waiting, but
Mm,
I'm happy. Like I'm good. Like I know it's coming. So
yes.
um so you have said, I remember when we met a couple weeks ago, just
Mhm.
quickly met, you talked about becoming the Christian financial advisor.
Yes.
And I don't I get that. I get financial advisor.
Mhm.
Or, but I don't get the Christian financial advisor, because my mind goes to ethical funds, because that's all
Yes.
I can think of. So
Yes.
I don't know if you want to talk a little bit like, what is a Christian uh, financial planner?
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to unpack that. So when I grew up, I didn't know that was a thing either. I was in the finance world, and I was thinking about was finance is scummy. It's all about just making profits, the bottom line. And of course, I know some good people in it, but that was my extent. And so after those 6 months of kind of just wondering, I decided to take on a position at at a financial services firm. And it was funny because I was talking to a different number of different hiring managers at that time. I was looking at equity management, private wealth. I was looking at consulting, and then financial services honestly was the last thing I wanted to do because people kind of call themselves financial advisors have screwed our family over, and I've just had a really bad kind of view of that. But I met the hiring manager who was the only Christian I had talked to, and I said, you know what, you seem pretty good. Like a lot of people are vouching for you, so I'm gonna join. But hey, the moment I detect something sketchy in what you guys are doing, I'm calling you out. And at least you're going to be able to pay me to get all these certifications so I can call you out. So I was very jaded and bitter. And then she said to me, hey, that's why I want you on my team. And I'm like, okay, challenge accepted. And so I joined, and after a month, I was talking to some of the people at the team meeting, and we're asking, why are you here? And one of the senior advisors puts his hand up and says, and his name's Ivan, he says, I'm here to reconcile my Christian faith and my work. And I just thought, wait, hold up. That's my prayer. That's why I'm here. Who is this guy? And so I get to chat with him. Turns out he was actually one of the managers when I was doing my first financial internship, 4 or 5 years before that time. And so it was really cool to reconnect with him. And he said, hey, Enoch, my calling is to teach biblical finance. And I thought, what? What are you talking about? And he says, well, Enoch, there's over 2,300 verses in the Bible that speaks about finance and money and management. And then do you know that Jesus speaks about money more than anything he talks about? Over 700 times he speaks about it. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh, okay. Sure, I know the story of the talents. I know that stuff, but what are you talking about? And over the next year, he just walks me through it. We go our Bible studies together, and we just go deeply ingrained in this. And I just thought, oh my goodness, there's so much that the Bible is teaching about finance. Why don't we ever talk about it? The church doesn't really talk about it. It's taboo for us to even think about it. And he says, Enoch, if we're not talking about it as Christians, but then the world is, we're going to be adopting the worldview about my finance, not the stewardship mindset that God has intended for us to do. And then he asked me, he says, hey, do you want to partner with me? And it actually took me a whole year to trust him, because at the time, I've heard of people misusing, the Bible for profit, for gain. So I'm like, I don't trust you, man. But after a year, just seeing him just teach it. And I remember the first moment we sat down on a meeting together, he opens in prayer. And I said, hold up, we're in a corporate office. Is like, can we pray? And it's like, why not? And then he brings up Bible verses. I'm like, wait, why are you bringing Bible verses when we're doing a consulting meeting? He's like, because we're going to go through them. And I was just blown away by just being able to integrate our faith into the work. And yeah, when we talk about Christian financial advising or planning, it's really just going down to the core of what is stewardship? What are the biblical frameworks and principles that are found in the Bible that are transcendent? And the crazy part is there's a lot of best practices today that we use that can be derived from the Bible. Everything from emergency savings fund, when you look into the story of Joseph, set inside the harvest in preparation for the famine. We think about diversification, which is found in Ecclesiastes, spread your portions 7 or 8 so that, you don't fail. And there's all this so good knowledge that's in there. And I think that's kind of really what it is, just helping people walk through what these are. So I'm just scratching the surface here, but it's just, it was a world I didn't know about until I discovered it.
So, I mean, when I think of, and I have to admit, and it's funny because I have to admit, my financial planner, I don't know if she's a Christian. I know that other people in my life that I've put there are Christian, my business coach. So I specifically chose those people. But my financial coach we've never talked about this. She's never brought out a Bible. But is there anything, because you still want to, you are a financial planner.
Yes.
Christian financial planner, you're still investing people's money. So is it any different in the investing? Like, as Christians, do I have to consider how I'm investing my money? Do I have to kind of step back and go, is that Christian? So I need you to explain that.
Right.
Because I'm sure you have two different types of clients. I'm sure not everybody's a Christian, or maybe they are.
For sure. Yeah, no, for sure. I'd love to answer a question. And to answer a question, I'm going to ask a question of my own. That's the advisor toolkit.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute. So the question I'm going to ask is, imagine this. Imagine you're the financial VP, the CFO of your life. If the CEO were to audit you and to look into your bank accounts, look to see how you're spending your money, what would they say about you? Would he fire you or promote you? Right? And so I asked that as a reflection. And at the end of the day, to say, well, if we're to be held accountable and responsible, and of course, most people say, yes, of course, responsibility and accountability. But then we ask the question, accountability to whom? That CEO for us, it's God. And God is the one that's entrusted us with things of this earth. And so another question I ask people is, who owns this? Who owns what you have? Your salary, your income, your assets. And if your answer is that, well, God owns it, then that changes everything, because that is what it means to be a steward. To look at what you own and things God's blessed you with, and to say, hey, how do I use it as a faithful manager for the glory of God to impact the world as we're called to, and to have a long-term eternity perspective and not a short-term personal perspective. And so there's a lot to go with it. But for example, a third of our clients are non-Christians, but we still are able to teach biblical principle because these are transcendent. And above all, and to go back to the question of you're asking, well, do I have to be mindful of my investments? And then my question to the people, it's, what is the best rate of return you can have? And for me, this is kind of where I talk about the concept of the ultimate currency exchange. I say, what happens if you can trade your dollars to win souls? Because we're called by the Great Commission, to make disciples of the nations and to bring them closer to Jesus. So, what's the best thing to do? Well, in in all of the top practices we talk about, for me, my rate of return is how many souls I can win. Because I ask people, at the end of the day, when you're standing in heaven face to face with the Lord, is he going to ask you, how much money have you made? Or is he going to ask you, what have you done for me? How many souls have you won? Right? And so that was my conviction moment for my life. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a lot.
We talked a little bit about, because I didn't know much about Christian Financial Planner, and you talked about companies that you invest in based on my personal values, and you said that's really important, negative and positive screening. And I want you to just sort of tell us a little bit more about how you align companies with your personal life, because you talked a little bit about that.
Yes. Oh, for sure. So one of the things that people come to me and say like, hey, I want to make a lot of money, buy a house, have, X amount of return. And so I always say, well, why? What is the core purpose of what you're getting at? When people think $1 million, they're not thinking the money itself. They're thinking what they can buy, who they can buy, the lifestyle, all these different things. And so I have to take a step back and say, hey, what's the purpose here? And so we talk about having purpose-driven goals. What are the goals that that the Lord's called you to? Whether it's fulfilling your calling, whether it's taking care of your family, what are different things? And so we map that out first, and then we work back to say, okay, what are the different investments and tools that you can do to get you there? So the investing isn't the end goal. The investing and making money and all these different things, it's a tool. Money's a tool to get you to the places or to see the impact you want to make on the world. And so when we look at our investments, we look at where we align our money to, you have to ask the question, are they in alignment with your core values? And what are those core values you're looking for? And so when it comes to responsible investing or biblically responsible investing, there's a lot of different approaches to it. The standard one is what you just talked about, screening, where negative screening is to say, okay, what is the criteria that I want to base that on so that I have to X out companies that don't align with my beliefs or values? So for example, with a lot of responsible funds, they don't invest in companies that deal with tobacco, pornography, with waste pollution, warfare, armor, guns and stuff. And so it's kind of the negative screening saying, okay, I don't subscribe to that. And in positive screening, or let's say ESG considerations, which stands for environment, social, and governance, tries to invest in companies or organizations that are promoting or really trying to live out those values, whether it's about social justice, environmentalism, let's say like a balanced, equitable leadership team. And going further, it's then asking, well, what are the things that God's called us to do? How do we find the ROIs that aren't, let's say, just about pure profits, but about, let's say, helping the widows, clothing the homeless, to, let's say, spread the gospel and advance his kingdom. And so it's really just having those conversations and being intentional about how you're aligning all aspects of your life. And I know this is just the investing portion, but really it's more than just investing. It's how you invest in your life, your time, your treasures, your talent, right? The 3 T's. And so investing is a core component. And that's something when we do our financial planning and take them on the stewardship journey, we really look at that and help them to discover and to align themselves. But the bigger question and bigger conversation is really, is your life in alignment? And when we look at it, I always ask them, what's the story you're telling me? What's the narrative here? Then I look at their finances and it's like, okay, it's telling me a different story. There's a dissonance here. Why? How do we reconcile this? And so it's a very fluffy kind of qualitative kind of conversation, but we're able to then qualify it afterwards and put numbers around it.
Okay. So you had said, you made a comment about you're not just a financial planner. I think you said that. So you're sort of a multi-service organization?
Yes. So we've developed a very holistic model where we incorporated elements of coaching, of mentorship, counseling, and where we're really able to take people through the journey because it goes deep. And, money can be such an emotional theme. People, have to unwrap. And so instead of just being a transactional relationship, we really look at the relational side. And that's kind of where we go deep.
Yeah. I never, as a Christian, I never thought of how I invest reflects on me.
Yes.
And I think I just went, I need to retire and that's how much money I need to make. But I I guess I just trusted people. I don't know. So
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that because we're not taught this. Financial literacy is at an all-time low in the world, and maybe a verse that can help is Matthew 6:21. So that's a very common verse throughout, but it says, "Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." And when we look at it, and I always tell people, it's like, hey, show me your bank account, and I can show you where your priorities are. I can show you where the flow of money is going as a reflection of what's important to you. And it's not bad; it's just a reflection of your priorities. But when it comes to being a Christian and to really enjoy true stewardship, like there's just, man, for me, what I tell people is at the end of the day, all I want to hear is the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant." I want Jesus to be proud of all the things I've done. And for me, finance is such a huge part about it. What can we do to enjoy that? Yeah, and so that's kind of some of the things that we get to talk about.
So I feel like we could sum up your professional life like, I think you're following your calling. Would you say that?
Yes. You can definitely say that now.
That's good. So just moving on to a little bit of your spiritual journey. Just,
Sure.
are you someone that grew up in church? You've been surrounded by this all your life, happy-go-lucky guy?
Yeah, I like the word you used, happy-go-lucky. Definitely, I was seemingly the happy-go-lucky guy. So growing up, I grew up in a church. I served there, but in high school, I really struggled, and this is a hard part for me. But I struggled with mental health. I was, feeling with anxiety and depression, and I was struggling with suicidal thoughts, and there was a few attempts. And at the same time, nobody knew. At school, I was a popular class clown, student society, all that stuff. But inside, I just hated myself. There was a lot of things that happened in our family, and I just didn't see hope. And it was around that time when my mom signed me up for some church camp, and I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to some stupid church camp. But I went to so this is the embarrassing part. But I went to the info session, and I thought, oh my goodness, there's some really cute girls here. So I thought I'm gonna sign up to get to talk to them. Oh my goodness.
That's the truth.
Yeah, that's this is the raw candidate side.
Yeah, you were a teenager.
Exactly. I was a teenager. Hormones were raging, so I go in there, and the funny thing is, when I get to the group, I didn't even end up talking to them because I got placed in this group of people that were a lot of international students. And so I'm in this group, everybody's talking different languages, and I'm just thinking to myself, wow, like, this is going to be a bit of a bummer. Like, I can't really connect to these people. But over the weekend, these people became my best friends. As we shared about our lives, they opened up, and I'm like, wow, y'all are going through some really dark things. But how can you just go and enjoy your life and laugh? I'm like, you guys have peace in your life. I want that. I want a piece of peace,
Oh, yeah.
And so I get to talk to them, and they said, well, that's because we have a relationship with Jesus. And I'm like, what does that mean? Because I grew up in a church, but it didn't connect to me. And as we were learning about it, I remember we were doing worship, and this one song comes up, and I just remember thinking, wow, this is such a cheesy song. And then I just started crying. And Lisa, this is so embarrassing, but I was just like bawling my eyes out. I'm thinking, wow, people are gonna laugh at me. So I turn around, and then half the people are crying too. And I'm like, okay, this isn't so bad. And at the moment, like, I just felt like a burden and a weight lifted as I kind of just said, hey,
wow.
God, like, Jesus, I need you in my life. And then, I just had this sense of peace. And coming back from it, actually, it was funny. My life actually got worse, over the years, right? Of course, that's how it usually goes. But
that's how why that happens.
100%, right? We know, right? It was a spiritual tax, and Satan's just like, yo, like, I lost the guy.
Want you back. Yes,
100%, right? And then I was just going through a lot of that, but I had peace. And since that time all the way till now, I've never been back into that dark place. Sure, I've had moments of mental downturns. Sure, I have moments where, things don't go the way you want it. But I've just always had this peace. And I've always been able to just go forward knowing I have this foundation in my life.
Wow. I feel that. I know exactly what you're talking about. Is it never got, because your story, I feel like, reflects mine. The high school and the depression, and I was always the popular, the athlete, the whatever. And when I became a follower of Jesus, I've never went back to that dark spot. Things get crappy, but there's always light. There's always light. So I get that.
There is. Amen to that, sister.
Amen. Enoch. Yes. So thank you for sharing that, because it's a good point. So anything more to share there, or can I ask you about Leader Impact? Can we move on to that?
Yeah, maybe one last kind of just thing to share about that. Yeah. So I think we talked a lot about the faith journey, about biblical finance, about kind of Jesus and all that. And I think I just wanted to give a word of encouragement to the people thinking or the people listening where, you know, no matter where you're at, whether you're, you're high net worth, killing it in life, whether you're broke and you can't just find a way out of your debt, like there is hope for you. And I think no matter if you have a lot of money, there's not a lot of money, we're all called to be stewards. And so my kind of challenge for people and my just heart for people is to really just examine where you're at and just to see how can you really just take steps towards becoming a steward God's called you to, and not out of fear and obligation, but out of joy. Because I can truly say to you, with the hundreds and hundreds of people we've worked with, we've seen such transformation where, people have gotten out of debt, or people that are being faithful stewards and investing in all the right places, and they just have so much joy, to be able to participate in all of this. And I think that's what I want to leave to people, to say, hey, you know what? Oh, I want them to just see what's the joy of just being able to make Jesus proud, and to know that you're fulfilling your calling. And for me, at the end of the day, we do help people with your finances, right? Budgeting, savings, insurance, investing, all that stuff. But the purpose is to free you from worrying about money and finances, so that you can be free to fulfill and pursue your own calling, the calling that God's called on you. So that's kind of like my last kind of piece on that.
Wow. See, my financial planner doesn't talk to me like this. Oh, Enoch, you're amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
So the reason when I first heard all about Enoch was your involvement in Leader Impact. So
yes.
I'm going to step back and say, when did you become involved in Leader Impact, or how did you get involved?
Right. So this happened right kind of around when I first joined the firm I was at about 4 or 5 years ago. And what happened was, when I was praying about, well, God reconcile my faith and my work, I didn't know that faith-placed ministry was a thing. And then almost instantly, God opened up all these doors where I got involved with all these organizations, right? Faith Tech, BAM, Mission Central, Leader Impact, and all these doors opening. So the story behind Leader Impact was, I was involved with their parent organization, Part of Change, Campus Crusade crew, in my university years, that talked about Leader Impact, which was, hey, it's like Part of Change or campus ministry, but for people in the workplace. And I thought, wow, how do I get connected? But nobody knew. And one day, Ivan, my business partner, he was going to a meeting. He's like, hey, you want to join me for lunch with these people? I'm like, great. Like, what is it? He's like, oh, it's a Leader Impact meeting. I'm like, wait, what? How are you involved? He's like, oh, I'm one of the leaders. I host a group. I'm like, are you kidding me? I was just talking about this last week. And so and that's how I got involved with it. It was a God thing.
These people get placed in your life. Isn't it crazy?
It's like, so crazy.
Yeah. Okay. Continue on.
Yeah, so that was my involvement in the beginning. And as I kind of got through it, it was really cool in that there were very high level people in there. The conversations were so great, but honestly, the average age was 50 and above, where people, they're talking about retirement, exit plans, their kids and grandkids. And I'm here thinking, I'm in my mid to late 20s. I'm just talking about figuring out my work, career, and identity. There was a little bit of a hardship where I had good mentorship from them. But my business partner, him now being 40, he was one of the younger ones. So like right now I'm 29. So what does that mean for me?
Right. I think I'm just going to say, because for anyone listening, there are groups of all ages.
Yes.
And I know that, I have a group, and it's young.
Yes.
It's not young, but it's women who are growing in their leadership roles. So I think, and there's probably more groups in your area. Sure. You found this one that is a little older.
Oh, for sure. Yes. We need to get the context. Yes. So Leader Impact groups, they're for all ages, all walks of life, all levels of leadership. And of course, there's the younger ones, the not so young ones. My group happened to be the not so young ones. And at that time, it was hard to find people that are around my age, which was the 20 to 30s. And what happened was, and we had talked about this last time, like, how did Leader Impact Next come about? And what was that? And so Leader Impact Next is a movement to really help the young professionals, those in the early 20s, early 30s, late 30s, to say, how do we band together and talk about some of the challenges and issues that we face collectively, but also to encourage and empower each other, because we share kind of that walk of life. And so what happened was, one of my friends, Vitali, he was with me in that group, and he's actually younger than me too. So I think he was early to mid 20s at the time. And we sat down with Russ, who was a regional director, and he challenged us saying, hey, what would it look like for you two to start a group? and to start this because we want to have a movement. And we thought to them, there's no way. Like, who are we? We don't have any credentials. What can we do? And then we prayed over it and we thought, okay, let's do it. And so we had a kickoff, a meeting, invited some people, and we, from 2, we became 5, we became 10. And then now we're at over 50, 60 people that are actively in groups, over 4 or 5 groups in our city. And it's still growing. Yeah. And it's amazing to see how God work in just the past few years. We've seen just dozens and dozens of people join these groups, and people are hungry.
Yeah. Do you feel it's almost this transition because you were involved in Crew, Campus Crusade in Simon Fraser, I'm assuming.
Yes.
And then Leader Impact. So there was kind of this space in between the 20 to 30s.
Yes.
So I love Next. Yeah. So
yes.
Are there groups across Canada, or can you give us a little bit of that?
Yeah, right now it's still growing. I know right now in Vancouver, we're kind of having a pilot in a lot of different things. I know around the world, there's kind of different Next groups popping up. And so right now, I think for people that are kind of wondering, hey, what is Next? How to get involved? Definitely check out the website. I know you'll supply them links and stuff in your podcast. Right now, because we're doing it with the COVID situation, so a lot of groups are meeting online. Yeah. Like I'm sure the Vancouver groups are open to having people kind of join in, or even just to help those in different cities where there's not groups to start one and to kind of grow from there. Because we had to start somewhere, but there is resources and people there to help guide.
Yeah,
around that.
And I think you're right about the online. For our group, which I've moved on to start a new group because that's what we're supposed to do as leaders. And we've got women from all over my province because it's online. And there's only one person in Estevan and one person, in this small town, and they can now join our online group. So we might actually continue it because it's such a great opportunity, So, yeah. So I know that I believe you've stepped away from Leader Impact. I think you were leading and you sort of stepped away. Do you want to give us a little update on that?
Yeah, for sure. So when Vitaly and I kicked off, and then we were starting to kind of grow the movement, and then we split off to start our own groups to really multiply in that. There was a time where I was involved with a lot of organizations, but last year, I was kind of praying and I was experiencing a big burnout. COVID happened and there was just so much going on in my life that, I needed to step back from things. And so I was hearing God call me into an area of rest, into Sabbath. And so, we did our transition plans, and I was able to transition out of all the organizations I was with, Leader Impact, Free Tech, etc. And this year was when, I was able to have the renewed sense to really grow, rise above, because we're launching our course, stewardship course. We're launching a potential podcast, launching kind of our resources, our books and stuff. And so there was a lot going on, and also helping take care of the family with my brother and all. And so it was a moment where I'm like, wow, God knew what was coming up. Because if I hadn't stepped down and passed it on, then I would have been more burnt out and just at the end of my rope. But because we had succession planning in place and God brought up these leaders, it's not just me and Vitaly, we both stepped down, but now there's 8 or 9 different leaders stepping up, and they're just doing much more than what we could have done. And so it's amazing seeing the next generation step up and step out.
Yeah, good. And how is your personal life? How's everything going there? Just, how are you doing? You've stepped out, or you stepped away because of COVID, the stress. How are you doing today?
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm doing so good. And thanks for asking that, Lisa. I think right now it's kind of just trusting in God because, it hasn't been easy navigating business through COVID. And, I'm helping take care of the family, their family business, and my brother who's going through a different cancer this time. And it's just, there's times where I wake up and it's just hard to get through the day where I pray to God and say, hey, like, help me, because I just am so tired, so burnt out. Even financially, sometimes it's just hard with our current economy. But, God, every step of the way has given us encouragement, and just to know that there's people around us that believe in what we do. And, I get these affirmations from clients all the time saying, hey, thank you for just helping us through this. Or, we've reached this different life stage and, we're so thankful. And I'm like, that's what keeps me going, to know what you're doing in your life, your purpose, your meaning, and then alignment to your calling. And so for me, though life does get very hard, we just keep going forward and we smile because, we know God's in control.
We let go, let God.
Let go, let God. Let's go. That's the mantra. Yes.
I'm with you. I love that. I got 2 questions left for you.
Yes.
It could get difficult. So
Oof, let's go.
no, Leader Impact is about your impact through your leadership. We know
Yes.
that. Have you considered what your faith legacy will be when you leave this world?
Hmm. Yes, I've actually been praying about this all the time.
Oh,
Because our big vision, the vision I want to see is I want to see a culture of stewardship in every household. And part of the way to do that is to equip faithful stewards and putting Jesus at the center of every financial decision. Because the truth be told, it's we, pray to God about stuff, we consult him with a lot of things. But when was the last time we really asked him about how we spend our money? And it's one of those things because I was guilty of that. I would spend money like no tomorrow. I would, do whatever I wanted. And I would never really think like, God, like, where are you in all this? And that's kind of my legacy I wanted to be able to leave is to see people transform by being good stewards. And part of that is also to eliminate poverty in the world, through education, through giving resources. And if all of us can rally together to help it, then we can just knock off all the UN sustainability development goals, tick, 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 and just play our part in it. So that's kind of the big things. I don't even know how we're going to accomplish it, but that's what we're aiming to do.
just believe. Just believe.
100%.
Oh, that's great. So I always ask my last question of my guests, what brings you the greatest joy?
Oh my goodness. For me, the greatest joy is when I'm sitting with someone and they just tell me of just how much closer they got to Jesus. And I see that in some of my clients and with a lot of my friends. And I think what's amazing is when I just see people that have been gripped by fear or by just confusion, whether it's like we talked about earlier, trying to get out of debt, just not knowing kind of their career involvement, the future, how to take care of their families, figuring out estate planning. There's just so much going on in life for people to be able to come and say, hey, we've given it to the Lord, we've transformed. Like they're bigger givers, they're more involved in their church, they're actively pursuing their calling. And for me, that's so great when I know that, hey, I've made an impact on someone's life. And to know that they're now going to go and make an impact on more lives.
Yeah.
And that's the discipleship mentality, right? You 1 to 12,
Yeah.
12 to more 12, 144, and then you multiply. That's what brings me joy.
Make an impact. Make a difference.
Exactly.
Enoch, well, I want to thank you for taking these last over 45 minutes to share with us your story, everything about yourself, your professional life, your spiritual. We were meant to talk. We live, our stories are similar. I can spend so much time with you, but I just want to thank you. I find myself so happy to surround myself with people like you. And I think you were just dropped into my life for that reason, just to continue on my own journey. And I think to everyone who's listening, we all have a journey, and to have you share, it just brings joy to my heart. So thank you, Enoch. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. No, thank you. Like when I heard you reach out, I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm not ready. I'm not worthy to be on this podcast, but just hearing you, and you also have an incredible story of your own that, resonates with me too. So it's been such a blessing and honor to be here. And thank you just for this wonderful conversation.
All right. Let go, let God.
Let go, let God. Yes. And let's go.
All right. Well, Leader Impact is a global movement dedicated to leaders having a lasting impact. And we believe that true impact occurs when your personal, professional, and spiritual life is fully engaged. We have a network in over 350 cities from around the globe. We host live and virtual events throughout the year and have a growing network of peer groups that meet weekly across these cities. Our podcast is just one of the ways to help you accelerate your growth as a leader. We hope you enjoyed meeting Enoch Weng, and you can find him at riseabovefinance.com. If you're part of Leader Impact, you can always discuss or share this wisdom with your group. And if you are not yet in a Leader Impact group, we would love to have you. So check out the groups available in your area at leaderimpact.ca, or get in touch with us and we will connect you. Stay in touch with our newsletter at leaderimpact.ca or on social media. And remember, impact starts with you.